Okay, guys, so if you watch the first video, there are some specific setups that we want to do for building this mallet. So again, I'm just going to start by selecting this guy, delete him. Okay, I'm going to go to my view. I'm going to change it from perspective to parallel projection and top-down view. And then I want to make sure that my format is on decimal inches, okay, because we're only working in something that is not not over a foot, and our precision we should have at we can do it to two decimal places. Okay, so once I have that all set up, I can change the name of my file to Mallet testing. Okay, find a folder where you're going to save it. I'm going to save it in my building and design file folder. Okay, so now I can always find what I'm looking for. So make sure you always name it, don't leave it untitled. Okay, so now, as in before, we come down here and select this pan tool and drag out my area so I have all of this area to work in. Okay, so now we can start building our mallet. So your mallet is made up of a couple of different pieces. So we need to build things as we're building it in the wood shop. So we have four pieces that make up the head of the hammer. So let's start by building that. So we're going to select the rectangle tool, and when you build something, you click and then you drag while you're holding that clicking button out. And if you notice on the bottom right here, the dimensions are changing as I am clicking out the size I want. So the size I want is actually 3.5 by 5. Okay, and to find out which dimension is which, okay, you can see that the first dimension is the length here, and the second dimension is the height. Okay, so I want to do it 3.5 inches as the first dimension and 5 as the second. Now I can try and find that dimension by keep going, okay, or I can just do any dimension I want, let go, and without doing anything else, if I type in and put a comma in between the two dimensions, it will automatically snap to it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in 3.5 or 3.5, comma, 5, and press enter. So now it has automatically made this particular item to the size I want. Now I can now zoom in on it. Okay, so I'm clicking this zoom to window tool, which is a good one. I can just draw a box around it. Now it zooms in and creates this uh, better look. Okay, so now I've clicked away by clicking select. Now I can check my dimensions by coming down here to dimensions. I now have selected the dimension tool. SketchUp will find a corner and it'll find a midpoint automatically. So I found the endpoint, I click once. I found the other endpoint, I click twice. And if I drag out my cursor, I can then create a dimension. So I know that that's 5. And here we go. I did the same thing with here. So it's 5 by 3.5. So it has now created a 5 by 3.5 flat drawing. However, my drawing has some depth to it. Okay, so if we look at this in a perspective, I'm now going to change to my rotate tool or my orbit tool here. And if I click and I move my orbit tool, you'll see that it is now creating a different view, a perspective view of what I got. Okay, actually not a perspective view, but an isometric angle view. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually grab this face and thicken it out, because right now it has no thickness. It's like a piece of paper or just a line on a piece of paper. Okay, well, the thickness of our wood is 3/4 of an inch. So in order for me to create this thickness, SketchUp has this tool here called the push-pull tool, which will work on any enclosed face. Now notice that this face is enclosed because it has a shaded area on it. If I were to try and draw a box, and I'm selecting the draw tool, and I clicked a line, click a line, click a line, and click a line, okay, but I don't close it, okay, this is not a closed face. It did not create a face here. It's actually 4 different lines. This is 4 lines and a face. So actually this box is created, has 5 elements to it: the face and each edge. And if you can see, when I click on each point, it lights up in blue. Okay, so those are the 5 elements that created this. So I can use this push-pull tool here, which is this box here with an arrow. I select that tool, and it will react on a face. I hover over the face. Once it lights up, I know I've got it. I click, and I drag my piece up. And just like before, I only want to go to 3/4 of an inch. I can try and find 3/4, or I can just let go at any point and type in 3/4. So 3-4, press enter, and it has now changed my distance to 0.75, which is 3/4 of an inch. And again, to check that, okay, so again, I'm going to zoom in on here so you guys see this a little better. All right, I'll go back to my measuring tool, and I'll grab this 2 points, and you see it is 0.75. So now I have created one piece of wood. And in SketchUp, what's really nice is that once you've created one thing, if you're creating multiples of the same, you can easily copy it. But I don't want to mess with this anymore. So I want to make this as a component. So if you look at this, this is now made up of a bunch of different pieces. Each of these edges, each of these faces, okay? But I want to make sure that I keep all this geometry linked. So I don't want to mess with this. So I need to create a component. So you can do it in a couple of different ways. So you can click once on something and right click, and it will bring this this drop down menu too, and I can go to select and put all connected. So everything that is connected, okay, was now selected. All right, now everything is selected. I can right click and type in make component. Okay, and I'll name this component, and the component's name will be the head of the hammer. Okay, press enter, and now you'll see that the entire item is lit up. And when I click away, and now when I click on try and click on an edge, it doesn't just click on the edge, it clicks on the entire component. So everything is linked together. Now, the only way to change this component, okay, is to double click, and now it draws this imaginary bounding line on here. So that means now I'm working inside of that bounded line, and I can do any modifications I want to, okay? But if I were to try and move this particular item, okay, I'm grabbing it, I'm moving the entire item all at once, okay? If I go in, and let's go back to selecting this item, double click the component. Now I'm in the edit component mode. And if I try and move something, okay, select my move tool, like here, I can't select the entire item. I'm only selecting a face, I'm selecting an edge. So if I try and move an edge, I click and move an edge, you see it drags the edge to wherever I want, okay? Control Z to undo that, or you see here, okay? So it's critical to always work with things as components because you don't want to mess up that geometry. So right now, the entire thing is locked inside of a cube, in other words, okay? So in the next video, we'll continue on.